There is a moment in every civilization when faith stops being a question and becomes an answer. Not your answer, not my answer, but the answer. And once that moment arrives, someone must guard it. Someone must interpret it. Someone must protect it from doubt, from curiosity, from you. This story does not begin with evil. It begins with fear. Fear of the sky when it does not rain. Fear of the earth when it shakes. Fear of death when it comes without warning. And in that fear, humanity asked a question older than language itself. Who speaks for God? The moment that question was answered, history changed. Because when one human claims authority over the divine, every other human becomes smaller. This is not the story of one religion. It is not an attack on belief. It is a pattern that repeats wherever the sacred meets power. This is the story of priesthood, not as faith, but as control. Before there were temples, there were fires. Before scriptures, there were stars. Before priests, there were questions. Early humans did not worship out of love. They worshipped out of uncertainty. The storm did not care about morality. The famine did not respond to kindness. So humans searched for meaning where control was impossible. And slowly, a figure emerged. Not stronger, not wiser, just closer. Closer to the rituals, closer to the chants, closer to the secrets. The shaman, the oracle, the priest. At first, their role was simple: to calm fear, to interpret signs, to give the chaos a voice. But interpretation soon became privilege, and privilege hardened into authority. Sacred knowledge was no longer shared. It was guarded. Languages were made holy and inaccessible. Calendars were controlled. Rituals were memorized. And the message became clear. You may believe, but you may not understand. This was the first fracture. Faith divided into two groups: those who ask and those who answer. Once that division exists, power follows naturally, because the one who answers questions controls reality itself. God did not move farther away. God was placed farther away. When priesthood aligned itself with kings, something irreversible happened. Authority gained heaven's approval. Laws were no longer debated. They were revealed. Wars were no longer ambitions. They were commands. Disobedience was no longer disagreement. It was rebellion against God. This is how violence learned to pray. Men marched to war believing their deaths were meaningful. Entire cities burned convinced their suffering was holy. And all of it was justified by voices claiming divine instruction. The genius of sacred power is that it removes responsibility. The priest does not kill. God does. The king does not conquer. He obeys. And once violence is sanctified, there is no limit to it. History is filled with holy wars, forced conversions, sacred massacres, different names, same structure. Power wrapped itself in scripture and called itself eternal. Fear is more effective than force. Force requires presence. Fear works alone. Priesthood understood this early. If you control the afterlife, you control the present. Heaven became conditional, hell became detailed, fire, darkness, eternal pain. Fear did what armies could not. It entered the home, the bed, the mind. Children learned fear before ethics, punishment before compassion. They learned that thoughts could condemn them. That doubt itself was dangerous. God transformed. No longer mystery, no longer wonder. God became surveillance. Confession turned inward. Guilt became permanent, and the believer learned to self-police. This is the most dangerous stage of priesthood. When the victim becomes the enforcer, you no longer need chains. People will imprison themselves. Once priesthood declared itself sacred, it became untouchable. Questioning authority became sin. Exposing wrongdoing became heresy. And abuse found the perfect hiding place. Victims were told to stay silent for the sake of faith. Justice was postponed. Truth was buried. Institutions protected themselves using the name of God as armor, and God was blamed for crimes he never committed. This is where faith breaks, not loudly, quietly. The greatest damage is not disbelief. It is disillusionment. Millions did not abandon God. They fled the intermediaries. Faith became trauma. Prayer became anxiety. And silence was praised as obedience. Entire generations walked away, not from belief, but from fear. Across history, one question keeps returning. Why does God need representatives? Why does truth fear inquiry? Why does faith collapse when power is questioned? Perhaps the most dangerous lie ever told was this: you cannot reach God without us. If God is infinite, he needs no gatekeepers. If truth is divine, it survives scrutiny. And if faith dies when priesthood is exposed, then what was protected was never God at all.